Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Card Combo Show, me Choco Billy. Right, so today's cards that we're going to be looking at are Go-Go, Dark Fina, Bunker Beast, Baigon, Bomb, and Kadaj. So some nastiness in there with a couple of monsters. Let's get to it. Okay, so Go-Go. If a forward in your break zone has haste, first strike or brave, Go-Go gains those abilities. So the first card that he ever really got paired with once he was able to was Feral Chaos, because Feral Chaos has haste, first strike and brave all combined. Obviously discarding a dark card can be a little hard. You can do it if you're over hand limit, or you can just play Feral Chaos into the field and then, sorry I forgot the word field was. Yeah, play Feral Chaos into the field, and then he has the option to break himself when he attacks or whatever, but where you'd pay 5 to do that, I don't know. There are other means. So there's quite a few other cards I like to run Go-Go with, and I had a Go-Go themed deck, all of which of the cards I think you're about to see. So I guess in a way this is a mini deck tech for Go-Go, but Unei and Caius. Now Unei might seem a bit backwards here, because obviously you want cards to go into the break zone, and Unei, stops them from going there. She sends them to removed. But Caius, the reason for that is that if you need to play Caius onto the field, it means that if he does break, you don't have to discard. So you can just remove him, and it means that you have to discard for whatever reason. But you can actually discard Caius from your hand to allow Go-Go to have Brave. Freya, big thanks to one of my friends who suggested this card. How I didn't think of it, I don't know. But haste and first strike in one card, that's very useful, especially if you're discarding Freya and paying 1 water to play Go-Go onto the field, immediately becomes a haste first strike 7k. So I actually used to run this with the Opus 1 haste Tifa, but I've changed that to the Zidane because he fits into the 9 theme of the deck a bit better. But he is a lot smaller as well, so he's a little less useful. But the play I used to do was I would discard Soldier 3rd class to pay for Zidane or Tifa, and also have Go-Go on the field or play him onto the field, whatever. Attack with Zidane. Now your opponent obviously doesn't want to let the damage go through, so chances are they'll block Zidane. He'll go into the break zone, then Go-Go will immediately get haste because Zidane has just gone to the break zone. So it's a nice little play, and it means your opponent will have taken 2k. Now obviously with Tifa it's a bit better because of the fact that it would have been, I think she's a 4k forward. But either way, it still, it still applies. He'll still basically have a 2k buff on Go-Go's first strike. Okay, so Dark Fina. When Dark Fina enters the field, select one of the 2 following actions. If you've received 5 points of damage or more, select up to 2 of the following. So search for 1 summon and add it to your hand, or cast 1 summon of cost 7 or less from your hand without paying the cost. So, from last week's episode, Unei! So be able to pay 7 for Dark Fina to cast something big, and then having Unei on the field to then, oh, you've cast a summon. Okay, we'll just discard a nest and you can cast another one. So those 2 can work quite nicely together as well, and given that Fina's limit is 7 or less, it means that you can cast something quite big as well. Something along the lines of Phoenix. Now, the reason I've gone for comboing it with Unei as well is because obviously Unei can bounce something. So you cast something like, well, you play Dark Fina, you might, even if you're on 5, be able to retrieve Phoenix from your deck to then cast it to get forward onto the field. Now you've cast a summon, which means Unei can bounce. Again, if you're on 5 damage, that means you can flicker Dark Fina and get her to retrieve another summon and cast another summon. I mean, it might be a second Phoenix, so you've dealt 8k to 2 things and got 2 forwards of 3 or less onto the field, which would be nuts, frankly. And you'll also have Dark Fina there as well. Obviously, Unei will have brought her onto the field dull, but still you have paid 7 to have got a 9k, 2 Phoenixes cast, so 2 loads of 8k to something, or 2 different things, and 2 forwards onto the field. That's just funny. Bahamut Zero. So Bahamut Zero works nicely in Ice, obviously, because it allows you to break something, so maybe it can break that Fel Thanos that's really kind of stopping you from getting anywhere, or just breaking a big forward, but then it can dull everything out, which you can combine then with Zalera. Hades and Gremlin. So that's how I'm going to start my shows now. Hades and Gremlin, as opposed to ladies and gentlemen. So yeah, be able to cast Hades I think would be quite funny, because if you play Dark Fina onto the field and you cast Hades with that ability, and you've got Gremlin already on your field, what you've done is you've paid 7 to break a dull forward of your opponents that makes them discard. That discard then makes Gremlin a forward, and if Gremlin had been there for a turn already, you can then attack with Gremlin. So for paying 7, you've gained 2 forwards, made your opponent discard, and broken their forward. And yeah, just with Terror and Snow on the field as well. So maybe you play Dark Fina, you cast Hades. Now obviously Terror will have to stack after the Hades proc, so you can't use Terror to dull the forward to then break it with Hades. It just means that effectively you get more bang for your buck. You cast Hades, you can break one of their dull forwards, but if they've got a second forward, you can also dull it as well. And then if Gremlin's been on the field for a turn, you then swing, and if you've got Snow on the back bench, then that will dull out any forwards that are in the way as well. So it's just Dull City, basically. Lunafreya, yeah, so if you block with Dark Fina on your opponent's turn, just sack your Lunafreya, bring it back onto the field. If you're on 5 points of damage, oh look, you just managed to fetch and cast another summon, which again, if you did it with something like Phoenix, that means that you can bring something else into the field. Maybe that will have an effect, like if it's on fire, or no, you'd be in water probably. But either way, that can take your opponent by surprise, because everyone seems to forget about Lunafreya when she's on the backup lineup. And yeah, that could just be super efficient. Okay, Bunker Beast. So it doesn't get played much, poor little guy, but I really like this card. So dull, choose one blocking forward, it loses 2,000 power until the end of the turn. So works with something along the lines of Sifa. If Sifa deals damage to your opponent, then that means all their forwards will lose 2,000 power. So that means they're more likely to want to block it, but the blocking forward loses 2,000 power. So basically they have to take a choice of all my forwards lose 2,000 or my blocking forward loses 2,000. Now obviously Bunker Beast can make it so that that'll be a 4k loss in power, which is pretty crazy. And Sifa only being a 6k, maybe a 7k if you've got Lulu, being able to buff that up to 10 at 11k, or effectively 10, 11k, is very, very useful. Lava Spider and Realm, so this is a bit of a weird one, but playing Realm to bring out Lava Spider and Bunker Beast, it then means that if Realm gets to attack the following turn, or generally this will be a monster themed deck, a lot of the monster focused cards tend to be smaller. So that means that Realm could attack, she would gain a 3k buff from Lava Spider, and then if that means she's a 7, then if your opponent does block, you can Bunker Beast to effectively trade up to a 9, which is quite funny. Now, do bear in mind that Lava Spider, its effect only applies whilst Realm is, or whilst the forward is attacking, so the instance you deal the damage, she gets blocked or she deals damage to your opponent, that 3k buff goes away again. Null, so it just kind of increases Null's survivability here, so a Null should be able to attack twice, you attack with them once, your opponent blocks with something, maybe another 8k, oh, I'm just going to reduce its power, and Null can attack again, maybe that was your opponent's only way of blocking something, if they've got another 8k, oh, I'm just going to swing, and unfortunately Null won't be able to survive that, but, you know, you can still knock out 2,000 power off it in case they have some way of buffing it. And then Archangel is just, yeah, just makes him even more annoying to have to block. He becomes a 9k when he attacks, but then being able to effectively push it up to 11k is horrible. Onion Knight, so this is a bit of a weird one, but when Onion Knight deals damage to your opponent, you may search for one card named Onion Knight and add it to your hand, which obviously funds all his S's, but there is the Lightning Onion Knight. I think there's only one at the time of recording anyway. I might be misremembering, but yeah. So that means that you've got at least a few options. I mean, there'll probably be another couple of Light Onion Knights in there as well. But what I like about this is the fact that your opponent doesn't want to block that card, mostly due to the fact that you're going to get a card off of it. But with his S, if you've already got the S in hand, then in turn Onion Knight gains 1,000 power, haste, first strike, and brave. So that then means that your opponent has to deal with the fact that he's going to be an 8k first strike with a Bunker Beast online, means that he can be blocked by a 10 and still survive, which is not good. Seguaridas. Now this might seem like a bit of a weird combo with Bunker Beast, but the main thought behind this is Bunker Beast is useful to lower something's power, but if, let's say hypothetically, they've got they've blocked your forward and then they've cast Belias, sorry, I forgot what it's called for a minute. That's now got a plus 1k buff and first strike, and that first strike could be what wins it over. Even if you can minus the power, if they can tack on a little bit more damage, that first strike is going to come in first and kill your forwards. So being able to remove first strike from the equation with Seguaridas is ultimately a very strong play. Ramuh, yeah, much of the same here. Your opponent blocks with something. Maybe even it could be something like Arden, which can't be broken. They block with it, lose 2,000 power, then Ramuh to a further 7k minus power. That's 9k minus power, which is pretty decent. Freya attacks, minus 2k to something. Your opponent doesn't want to take a piece of damage. Point of damage. They block, and then you just bunk a beast to minus 4. I mean, like a Null, it increases Freya's survivability. Sync, so maybe you want that opponent to have to block. So you use Sync's ability of one fire and a dull, and then you attack with something. Maybe it's not big enough to kill it outright, so you've got to lower its power. Nice. Baigen. If Baigen has dealt 3,000 damage or less, the damage becomes 0 instead. When Baigen has dealt 4,000 damage or more, you may put Baigen into the break zone. When you do so, deal 7k damage to all the forwards your opponent controls. So he's a weird card, to be fair, and cards like Kuchaspel now kind of screw with them a little bit. But, you know, when you get into these matchups, you look at your opponent's backup, or you try to look at their backup lineup, and if you see Kuchaspel there, then maybe Baigen isn't a card to be playing, but you know, it swings around, but you play how it goes. So C-card. Now this seems a little strange, I understand, but it basically means that Baigen can take a little bit more damage and it would effectively become 0. So it's like doing some sort of weird Minwu effect on him with C-card, but it just kind of increases Baigen's survivability a bit, and you may not want to proc his put him to the break zone effect until you choose to. Similar sort of thing with Cecil. So say, and this is the thing with Baigen, is that ultimately, if he takes damage equal to his power, he will break. You can't use his effect. So if it was 6k, put him into the break zone, that's fine. And again, that might be a reason to play C-card, is that he can block 7k, something like that, but then deal 7k back. But with taking more than his power, you could effectively block a 9k with Baigen, use Cecil's ability to minus 4k to his damage, and then, oh look, all of a sudden I can put Baigen into the break zone and deal 7k to your board. Or you can just make it so that he's got even more survivability by knocking down 7k damage to 3, and then doesn't take anything. And Necro, yeah, I mean, that's pretty standard really, just make it so he's a bit harder to break and you have more options of putting him into the break zone. Yeah, so here come the weird janky plays. So let's say you've got Edgar on your backup lineup and you've got Sabin. You attack with Sabin, you can deal 4k to any forward on the field. So you deal it to Baigen, put Baigen to the break zone, deal 7k to your opponent's board. You have lost a forward to do this, but for effectively attacking with a little Sabin, I think that's pretty good going. Manasvin Warmech, so you could use that on Baigen to increase the 7k to a 9k board wipe, which is a lot more formidable, which you can also combo with Sabin. So you attack with Sabin, deal 4k to Baigen, increase Baigen's damage by 2k, 9k board wipe. Cyclops, yeah, I mean, that's another way of just kind of finishing everything off. Deal 7k to everything. Okay, let's push it to effectively 10. Bomb, this is a weird little one, but I think that of these monsters, aside from Skeleton in Opus 11, Bomb is another one that works quite well because you've got so many cards in fire that can bring in forwards quickly. So Xande is the obvious choice here, especially if you want 5 damage. You can play Xande, bring in 3 more forwards. Bomb's immediately online, deal 10k to something. Muti and Garland, so yeah, this Garland never sees any play, and it's understandable. But you know, if you can play Garland, and that brings in Muti, I mean, you've just got gain 2 counters onto Bomb, only 1 away from being able to use Bomb's ability, but you also get a fire summon off of Muti's ability. Maybe you could play, maybe Muti could go get you a Phoenix, which you then also play, to then increase Bomb's counter and kill something with Bomb as well. Rain, so this is less so much Rain, but the Waft deck being able to play a lot of things for free and quickly and reducing their cost is just... I mean, I hate the Waft deck anyway, but yeah, it just means that Bomb's a bit more viable. Sol and Aegis, or Aegis doesn't have to work alongside Sol specifically, but you know, that's the play. You play Aegis into Sol, again, you get another 2 counters on Bomb, only 1 away from being able to deal 10k to something. King of Eblan and Queen of Eblan, similar sort of thing. a very rarely played cards, but you know, you could be running a silly, funny, janky deck, and that applies nicely to bomb. No, so this is a weird one. Pay 2 fire and 4 colourless. Play Null onto the field. You can only use this ability during your main phase and if Null is in the break zone. So you're paying 6 to effectively kind of cast a Phoenix on Null and Null only, but it could take your opponent by surprise. If they got something big which is really being a pay, oh look, let's just bring in Null and 10k to something. Hopefully anyway. Cloud. So your opponent could, say you've got 2 counters on bomb, and Cloud blocks something and dies. Let's just get rid of the top 10 cards of your deck, bring Cloud back onto the field. Look, Bomb gets another counter. You can now deal 10k to something additional to the damage that Cloud dealt when he entered the field as well. And finally, Kadaj. Oh yes, everyone loves Kadaj. So when Kadaj enters the field, select one of the 3 following actions. Choose 1 forward, dull it, choose up to 2 cards from either player's break zone, apologies, remove them from the game. Or choose 1 forward until the end of your turn. It gains plus 2000 power and brave. At the end of each of your turns, you may remove Kadaj from the game. If you do so, at the end of your opponent's turn, play Kadaj onto the field. So he's a really weird card. He just kind of disappears and comes back whenever he likes, really. And coming in your opponent's turn may seem not great, but there's a few cool ways to work this. So, Sabin, when Kadaj enters the field, he gives plus 2000 and brave till the end of your turn. So that means, obviously, the controller's turn of Kadaj. So even though he's coming in your opponent's turn, the controller of Kadaj gets the plus 2k and brave. So, Sabin, if you're on 5 damage, you could increase his power to 9 and brave. If you've got Lebro down, that means he's now a 10k brave. You attack with Sabin, and you deal 10k to something. Like a mini BFA almost. Duncan, similar sort of thing with his S though. Maybe you could run this in some sort of monk deck, because a lot of monks have the ability to deal their power in damage to something. But his Phantom Rush, S, dull, choose 1 forward, deal damage equal to Duncan's power. So you could plus 2k and brave to Duncan, attack with Duncan, and then use his dull ability to deal 10k to something else. Scale Toad, so at the end of your opponent's turn, if your opponent has 2 cards or more in his or her hand, your opponent discards 1 card from his or her hand. So, you've now got Kadaj and Scale Toad. Now, the big thing to note here with these cards is that you, as the controller, get to choose the order these resolve in. So, even though they're both triggering at the end of your opponent's turn, and even though it's your opponent's turn, you still get to choose the order. So you could have it so that Kadaj stacks first and then Scale Toad afterwards, and as it resolves in reverse, Scale Toad would make your opponent discard a card if they had to, and then Kadaj would enter the field. Another card this works well with is Death Machine! And I think he works fantastically. In fact, I think I missed out including Kadaj on my Death Machine, the episode which I include Death Machine in, but at each turn, at the beginning of the main phase 1, if either player controls no forwards, put Death Machine into the break zone. At the end of your turn, choose 1 forward your opponent controls, break it. At the end of your opponent's turn, select 1 forward you control, put it into the break zone. So, let's say you've got no forwards at the end of your opponent's turn. Death Machine doesn't kill anything, but then, like I said with Scale Toad, you make sure to stack it correctly. Death Machine goes to break something. Oh, you haven't got anything. Fair enough then. And obviously be aware, because Death Machine is a select. So you'd want to stack it so that it goes Kadaj first and then Death Machine. So Death Machine would resolve. You don't have any forwards to break. That's fine. Then Kadaj comes onto the field. Move to your turn, Death Machine will check each turn at the beginning of main phase 1. If either player controls no forwards, put Death Machine to the break zone. You control a forward, and the chances are your opponent will have a forward as well, because they're going to see Kadaj keep coming in every turn and don't want to just keep on taking damage. But Death Machine will, every turn, provided your opponent has a forward. If you've got Kadaj and Death Machine on the field, or if you still control Kadaj and Death Machine and your opponent has a forward every turn, you can just keep breaking those forwards. There's no limitation on the forwards that Death Machine can break, and Kadaj keeps on flicking out and coming back at the end of your opponent's turn, and Death Machine can stay on the field. That's just silly. Daj and SARS! Yeah, this is out of the left field, right? The main reason for this is the fact that Kadaj can make SARS incredibly hard to deal with, but most of the time your opponent doesn't need to deal with SARS because he's got such a low power. Maybe you've got Lebro to make him a 4k, Kadaj comes into the field, buffs him by 2 and gives him Brave. That's a bit more of a worry because now he's a 6k, but if you've got a couple of points of damage, SARS is now effectively maybe an 8k or a 9k, which your opponent can't target with summons or abilities. And Kayn. Props again to another friend for coming up with this combo. I think it's genius. When a dark forward of your opponent enters the field, your opponent gains control of Kayn. When a dark forward you control is put from the field into the break zone, your opponent gains control of Kayn. So if your opponent does play some dark forward and gains control of Kayn, at the end of their turn, Kadaj comes back onto your field and you gain control of Kayn again. So unless they break Kadaj, which obviously is very likely to happen, Kayn just stays on your field, which is hilarious. And there we have it, everyone. Thank you ever so much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the video. I thought there were some really funny things today, especially the Death Machine Kadaj play. I love that, but it is mean, ultimately. Play nice, children. Don't. The aim is to have fun here, not to just completely destroy your opponent's willpower to want to do anything in life. So, you know, be nice. Follow me on Twitter at Chocobilly92. Subscribe, like, and I'll see you on the next video.